Ukrainian drones have struck Russian Iskander ballistic missile systems in Molkino training ground in Russia's southern Krasnodar region. Photos capturing the strike have been shared in social media. The attack was carried out in August with the use of 14 unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs. As a result of the strike, several Iskander missile systems were destroyed, a Pantsir-S1 air defense system was damaged, and warehouse facilities along with other vehicles were also affected. Designed for precision strikes and capable of carrying both conventional and nuclear warheads, Iskander missiles, with the cost of around $4 million, have been an important asset in Russia's strategy to undermine Ukraine's defenses and target major assets since the start of full-fledged invasion in February 2022. The missile has been widely used to strike a wide range of targets, from military faculties to critical infrastructure, exerting psychological pressure on local population. It should be noted that last month's attack on Molkino was not the first one. Molkino training ground was previously attacked in September last year. Administrative buildings at the location, which housed the Wagner Group's training base for nearly a decade, were set ablaze during the attack. It should be noted that the Ukrainian army has scaled up drone and missile strikes on Russia's military and energy facilities in occupied parts of Ukraine and deep in Russia in an attempt to degrade Moscow's war efforts. A UN human rights report released today details the dire situation of thousands of civilians detained since Russia's full-scale armed attack on Ukraine in 2022. According to Associated Press, it is based upon interviews conducted from June 2023 until September 10 of this year. It focuses on two groups: first, Ukrainian civilians detained by Russia in occupied territory. Second, conflict-related detainees held by Ukraine for national security offenses.
The report finds that Russian authorities have subjected Ukrainian civilian detainees in occupied territory to torture and ill treatment. The Russian Federation has frequently disregarded legal and procedural safeguards in occupied territory, resulting in high numbers of arbitrary detentions and raising significant concerns about enforced disappearances. Human Rights Chief Volker Turk calls for the human rights. In territory under its control, Ukraine has detained mainly its own citizens on charges related to national security, including treason and espionage, the report details. Many conflict-related criminal cases also involve charges of collaboration based on the individual's interaction or cooperation with the Russian occupying authorities. We reiterate that civilians must always be treated humanely and can only be detained on grounds lawful under international law. They must be released from detention as soon as such grounds cease to exist.
Law in occupied areas. Civilians have been
UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk calls for the human rights of civilian detainees to be prioritised in any peace talks.
The invasion. These are actions that are not considered to be crimes. Civilians in detention face heightened risk of torture, abuse, and disappearances, especially during wartime when they are often seen as security threats. Through their words. Since February 2000, civilians have been systematically targeted for their perceived ties to Ukraine's armed forces and subjected to prosecution for alleged crimes such as treason, discrediting the Russian armed forces, or criticizing the invasion. These are actions that are not considered to be crimes under occupation law. Over 15,000 civilian. A core finding of this report is systematic and widespread torture and ill treatment of Ukrainian civilians by Russian authorities. Of those interviewed, 92% reported torture. This includes severe beatings, sexual violence, threats such as mock executions. One detainee described to us being beaten so severely with a baseball bat that he begged to be shot. His captor instead laughed and beat his teeth with a baseball bat, knocking out his teeth.
Take a guess and say if this is limited, how many?
Ukraine has largely followed its procedural safeguards, for example, ensuring access to lawyers and complaint mechanisms. But concerns do persist. For example, 117 detainees reported torture or treatment when they were first detained in 2022, or most cases were from early 2022. Pre-trial detention is overused and bail is rarely granted. Investigations into abuse have seen limited progress. Still in custody. For this report, This report is vital for several reasons. First, it confronts us with the harsh reality of torture, which underscores the urgency of ending it. And the report gives several practical recommendations for doing this. Second, in any negotiation, the release of civilian detainees held by the Russian Federation must be a priority. And the law and the facts in this report provide a basis or can support these efforts. Third, the public record formed by this report can be drawn upon to hold perpetrators accountable. And finally, those detained and their family members deserve for the truth to be known and their suffering to be acknowledged.
Я подавала кучу запросов в Министерство обороны России, и мне отвечали, что не числится, в СИЗО кучу я подавала, не числится. И в один момент мне пришло письмо от Министерства обороны России, что мой отец задержан и удерживается на территории Российской Федерации. Но конкретики никакой не было и причины, почему он задержан. В ответ на это письмо я отправила запрос ответить мне, по каким причинам он задержан и где именно он удерживается. В ответ я получила, что папа не задержан, а это была ошибка, потому что много там однофамильцев и все. После этого я подаю кучу запросов на разные территории, в разные области, но ответы некоторые приходят, некоторые нет. Но везде ответ, что не числится. И по сей день я не знаю, где находится мой папа.